Alright, so kind of last video as you're kind of preparing for your exam, and your essay is to kind of look at that final paragraph, and that final paragraph looks at kind of the implications. It's what you need to look at if you're hoping to get the merits and the excellence grades here. And that's going through and looking at the second sentence here. Although it doesn't specifically state implications, it might use words like effect and allude to what the implication is. Now in this case, again, it's going to usually be underlined and or bolded, and that's the fact that things develop over time. So the implication is change, and the kind of change that's occurred. So we need to, one, reinforce the fact that yes, these characteristics have changed over time. And we need to also talk about the fact that, we can see examples of the change. We then need to list and consider the reasons for the change, and then explain those reasons in some detail before finishing off with some examples. So we want to start this topic sentence like we would anything else by just going back and reinforcing the point of the paragraph. And that is that the US TV sitcom, television sitcom, characteristics of ensemble cast and romantic narratives have developed over time. So we're not trying to do anything too crazy here. We're just taking that second sentence and kind of rewording it and making sure that we clearly support and agree with that sentence. Now I want to go ahead and provide some examples after I, of course, add in the column. So let's say ensemble casts. In Cheers, the 1980 sitcom, revolving around the employees and patrons of a Boston bar. The cast is, let's say males are more represented in the cast. The only two females Rebecca and Carla are either viewed as objects by the male cast members or as one of the guys. If we fast forward, to Big Bang Theory, there is a more equal representation of male to female cast members. And both the setting and their occupations differ. While you still may have a female viewed as an object, Penny, we do not have a typical leading man in Leonard's character. Sheldon's character may resembles an individual on the spectrum with a different set of ideas and routines, while Amy is more reflective, is constructed as the opposite to Penny. Now, a lot of this I'm doing off the top of my head, so forgive me if there are pauses and so forth. But what we've done there is we've at least explained how things have changed and that there's a tad bit more diversity in the ensemble cast. I could go on in a bit more detail to say, these changes also include include characters that are seen as visible minorities, with respect to ethnicity, religion, etc. Now, it would be really great if I could actually come up with a quote off the top of my head, but I haven't obviously done that. So I've brought an example of the changes, at least in the first one, which is ensemble cast. Now I need to list some of the reasons why we see these changes. So a couple of reasons why we see the characteristics change and develop over time is due to, and this is where I could kind of do a little list, so audience expectations, changes in social ideology and values in society. Or changes, in the target audience. So I've gone ahead and listed them. Now I pretty much need to explain them. I mean, ideally I'd explain all of them in detail, but at the very least I should be explaining at least one in detail. And that might be, I pick one of those at kind of random and say, maybe I'll talk about the changes in society and values. So I said, for example, changes to demographics and values in society mean that audiences are less likely to relate or enjoy a comedy based around one character's attempt to sleep with another. In a society in the 1980s, could be viewed, or is viewed, differently than today, where objectifying women is no longer a source of comedy. The appropriateness and relevance. Relevance that we place on equity and equality today were not actively represented in mainstream sitcoms in the 80s. Though produced in the 1990s, that 70s show is set in the 1970s, and its characters represent the values of the time. For example, Kelso states in the Promise Ring episode that the Promise Ring is not only a gift from the heart, but it also means more sex and less mouthing off. These kind of values, these kind of statements might have been more common in that generation, but are used in the 1990s to demonstrate how silly and inappropriate Kelso is. And finally, you kind of want to end the essay by maybe looking at the effect it has on the genre. So, as we look at how society values kind of interpret what we see on television, we need to recognize that as sitcoms continue to evolve and change over time, they will take their cues from what is happening in society and what values are either dominant or represent the changes society is experiencing. We see this in modern sitcoms that examine issues like same-sex marriage and family. We've got examples of The New Normal, Modern Family, or the changes in the modern workplace, things like The Office and Parks and Recreation, or even the rise in animated sitcoms that are satires of modern society. So things like The Simpsons, Family Guy, etc. So this is what we've got, and then we go with that, then we know we've got the effect on the genre. We've covered probably as much as we can in a quick, right-off-the-cuff construction of an implications paragraph. And what we've done is we've obviously used evidence from the text, and we've shown people that we can explain why things developed over time. And in this case, it developed over time because there's been changes in society, what we value, the ideas, what we expect as an audience, and how the audience itself has changed. So we'll quickly just highlight these things. So if we want to reinforce the message, well, that comes through in our very first topic sentence, as always. So we want to make sure we start off that paragraph by pretty much just agreeing with the statement. Provide an example. So here we go. It goes into a little bit of length here, but we want to use a compare and contrast, okay, because we're showing passage of time. So how things have changed. So we go back to the 1980s and compare that to modern day. The reasons for the change, that's the really important part, okay. Wanting to make sure that we understand why it is these things have changed, or why it is they generate income, or why it is they appeal to an audience. So providing those kind of details, a bit more detail, making sure that we can explain that reason. Sometimes the explanations don't have to be overly long, they just have to be concise and kind of to the point. Making sure that you can provide examples, however, from the text, and the more specific the better. That's what really kind of puts you, I won't say over the top, but gives you a lot more of a convincing kind of argument, if you will. And then finally, at the very end, if we can talk about the overall effect or the overall impact, then at that point I think we've pretty much covered everything we're expected to in a level 1 response. So my hope is that by going through this and providing a video, that I haven't bored you tremendously to death, although I know this recent one's about 17 minutes, but at least gives you a chance to go back over and think about how to structure your planning in your essays. Feel free to email me at any time if you need any questions, sjarek@fieldinghigh.school.nz. Best of luck with next Wednesday's exam.